Someone can't teach you industrial sales if they've never been in the industry.
You're gonna get tips and tricks from our sales lives that you won't get anywhere else.
What I'm trying to get us to be is the biggest industrial sales and marketing agency like in the world. We're not playing for average at all, ever. I don't want any client, if we surveyed them, to be like, yeah, it's good. Like, I want to be like, dude, they're awesome.
What's up, guys? I'm Kyle Milan. We are here live, LinkedIn, YouTube, talking about sales. Today's Thursday, and it is the fourth Thursday of the month. So every week, if you're new to the content, we go live 6 times a month right now. Every single Tuesday, we go live. We talk about industrial marketing. And on Thursday, second and fourth week, we talk about industrial sales. Today, we've got a good one talking about how to pitch. If you guys are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please head over to it. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, where we have over 950 videos about industrial sales and industrial marketing. So let's jump into today's episode. Now we're on camera 2. Check out this production value. We got new lights. We got new background. We got some deck set. We brought in Alex to be all tall next to me, looking huge. Looking huge. So today, what are we talking about? We're talking about how to pitch industrial products or services. If you guys have questions as we're going through this content, please put them in the comment section below. We will go through it as we go out there live, and then when we take a quick break, about halfway through, we'll jump back in and answer all the questions live. So the first thing in how to pitch industrial products or services, and I know a couple things about this because I've seen a ton of people do this wrong, completely wrong. So the first thing is what, Alex? Read that off.
Are you prepared?
So are you prepared? Now, disclaimer, all you salespeople out there that think that you guys are the best, unless you're making like $500,000 a year in industrial sales, you are not the best. So eat a little humble pie. You're here to learn. And I'm telling you that most of you guys typically aren't prepared. The reason for that is because you were probably taught by somebody that isn't the best in the field to teach you how to prepare for this. But it all comes down to, do you know your pitch? Do you know what you're going to say? Do you know how you're going to say it? Does it flow off of your tongue? Can you think on your feet? Do you understand what it is that you guys are selling, products or services in industrial? Alex, jump into that a little bit.
It's a really important, you guys, to know and have a deep product knowledge, understanding, including the technical specifications, applications, and advantages, everything that your product can do and can't do. The can'ts are just as important as the cans, because that leads into knowing your target market. You know, if you don't know what your product or service can specifically do and what it can't do, you might bump into a customer or a client that's coming in. You don't know whether that product or service is actually going to work for them. You need to know the market that you're going into, know that everybody that you are going to be talking with, if you know your market, is actually going to be able to use your product and your service.
Yeah, and so when you know your product or your service, it just comes down to, you don't have to have all of the answers to all the questions. And this is a common myth in industrial sales and any sort of technical sales. Usually what happens is they take the smartest person that knows the most about the product, and they go through and promote them into a sales aspect, because upper management owner thinks that you have to have all the answers technically in order to sell. But here's the gap that happens. Typically, those people that are super techie, know all the back-end engineering behind it, aren't focusing on the selling skills, knowing how to work deals through the pipeline, how to ask thought-provoking questions, how to pull the information out of the potential customer. They don't have those skills, nor do they work on them because they're focused on the technical side. So they do the classic show up and throw up where they just say, hey guys, Kyle, thanks so much for taking this time. I just wanted to review my spec sheets, review my line card, look at my press sizes, et cetera, and they're just throwing up information. Those of you that understand or know about Industrial Sales University, I got a whole course on how to pitch, and that's a big portion of it, is that show up and throw up. That is not how you want to do it. So that's not what I mean by know your information and be prepared. That comes down to understanding that you're there to have a conversation. You're not there to answer every question. You don't have to have every question to be able to be answered. You've got a team supporting behind you, but prepared from the standpoint that you know what it is that you guys do well, you know the mission that you're going after, you know the general services, and you know how to ask those questions. Our team here has a handful of questions that we ask on every discovery call. When we train our clients' sales teams, whether they're an industrial marketing client or just a sales client, when we train them, we walk through the process of making sure that they are prepared, because usually they're just fumbling around everywhere. Next topic is going to be the purpose of the pitch. Number 2, Alex, what is the purpose of the pitch? What do I mean by that?
You got to be a little bit more specific in what you're saying by the purpose. There's lots of purposes of the pitch here. We're trying to sell somebody something, or we're trying to achieve, making their lives easier. That's really the purpose, I would say.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is, which camera are we on? That one. What I mean by that is, every different type of pitch in every different scenario has a purpose, right? So if Alex is making a cold call, the purpose of that pitch is to get them to the next stage and get them to book a discovery call. So that's what he's focusing on in that. Now, are there some possible scenarios where he calls somebody up, he meets somebody in person at a trade show, et cetera, and they want to go 3 steps down in that conversation? Yes, that can happen. But generally speaking, you're trying to get enough information out from them and be able to schedule that next follow-up. So for you guys in industrial, it's going to be generate an RFQ. Now, so if your goal is to generate an RFQ, then you need to go into it having your stuff ready, point number 1, being prepared, and saying everything that I'm going to talk about in this conversation, whether it's on the phone, on a video call, in person, everything you're going to talk about is going to be related to trying to get that next step. So once you have your stages lined out and laid out, and you know from the call, from the initial contact, I'm trying to put them through a qualification phase, make sure that they need what you have, that they have the money, the funds, the budget for what it is that you're selling. Make sure they have all that. That's what I mean by like the purpose of the pitch. What do you got to say on that?
I wanted to touch back on something actually that you had said on the Are You Be Prepared, and then I'll touch on that real quick. So he had mentioned that not necessarily knowing all the answers on there is important. Being able to go and have that relationship with your team. I've had multiple times, I've gone into Kyle in the middle of a discovery call because I didn't have an answer, but I knew that, hey, Kyle is doing something, but I can go in and ask him a question because we have that relationship. I've gone into our COO, I've gone to our web design team to ask them questions in the middle of a discovery call. I obviously don't just get up and walk off. I go and I tell the client, hey, let me get that answer for you real quick. If it's okay, if I leave you here for 1 or 2 minutes, go get the answer then, because then you can bring it back to them. It shows them that you have that relationship with your team, that you can go out, you can talk to your team, and your team is one unit, one cohesive unit. And then going back to the purpose of the pitch, again, as Kyle said, you need to know what your goal is. You need to know, okay, going into it. So when we're going into a trade show, I'm going in my first initial goal is to get the conversation going. And then that's purpose 1. The next purpose is as soon as you get the conversation going is to get them to book that discovery call. And then so on and so forth. After you get the discovery call, get them to go to the RFQ and then to eventually buy. If you don't have those steps in place, you don't have those small goals in place, going from initial contact to selling seems like a really far off in the future, distant thing. But if you have those goals that you're achieving, those small goals you're achieving along the lines of this sales pitch, along the lines of the sales life, you are going to feel good. Hey, I've got that next goal. Now on to the next one. It's the small wins, guys.
Yeah. So it's like Alex saying, baby steps, right?
Yeah.
So you're just trying to take steps to it. And if you know the goal and you know the purpose of what you're trying to do, and you know the next step, then and you're focused around that, you're going to be asking those questions to get that information to then set up the next stage. If it is a discovery call for us or an RFQ for you guys, in that initial conversation, you're just asking questions, but you know that that's the next step. So you want to make sure those questions around qualifying them at the same time, if you can, and pulling some information out of them to then segue and lead up to, hey, does it make sense at this point for us to provide you guys with some pricing, or do you guys have some opportunities out there that we can provide pricing on? That's what it's all about. Too often people are focused on, like Alex said, trying to get to the sale. And that seems far off. And that may be 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 22 months, depending on what it is that you guys are selling. It could be a long sales cycle. But if you break it down into baby steps and say, all I'm looking to do is get a yes to this next step. And then from there and there, and you start stacking up those yeses, you're going to start creating some momentum and moving the ball further down the field. And you have better conversations, just going in there prepared and knowing the purpose. Because I've seen so many salespeople, they get like fumbled and don't really know, like they get lost in the conversation. And then in the end, it's like, did you get that RFQ? Oh no, I totally forgot. Like I was sidetracked with all this other stuff and they needed to get off the phone, or they needed to go on to the next person at a trade show. So go into it with that purpose. Anything to add on that?
Having that value-based selling, again, creating value, that's going to be one of the purposes. The initial purpose is to create value to someone, whether that be, showing them how the product or service is going to do, teaching them something about your product or service that they might not necessarily know about and how it can affect them or benefit them. And as well, value-based and solution-based selling. Those are the two big things that we all as sales guys know. You can do a bit of both, whether that be value and solution. Value-based is obviously going to be the first thing that you're going to try and provide to them. If you're going to show them what your product is worth, and then you can do the solution. If they say, hey, we've had these X, Y, and Z issues with previous products or services that are very similar to yours, that gives you into the solution selling. Hey, look, this is why we are better, is that we don't do X, Y, and Z that the other companies do because we're better at it.
Exactly. So on that note, let's go into point number 3. Point number 3 is ask questions. The person that you're talking to, whether it's in person, on the phone, in video, etc., should be speaking more percentage of the time than you are. I mean, I'm not going to tell you an exact example, but I would say 60% of the time, 70% of the time, more than you are. The way to get people to do that is to ask questions. So you're trying to solve a problem, but first you have to find the problem. This is all about building trust, right? In all of the pitching, all you're trying to do is build trust. All throughout the sales process, you're just trying to build trust. So as you're focusing on solution-based selling instead of spec sheet selling, these are the specs of my machine. These are the specs of what I have in my shop. These are the specs of the equipment. Instead of going that way, and you go solution-based, you have to ask questions because you can't solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is. So having those key 5, 6, 7 questions lined up. So for you guys, ours would be different. But for you guys being like, what's the top 2 things that are issues with your supply chain right now? What problems are you having in your shop with this type of equipment? What are 3 KPIs or metrics that you track? What is one initiative that you have this year going into 2024 to improve your overall efficiency on the shop floor? Customize it to what you guys are selling, the service or the product, but you have to have those questions lined up and get the answers to those questions, because as you ask them the questions, sit there and listen, like high attention alert listening, not just waiting to respond, but ask those questions, wait for them to respond, and then continue to ask more questions to try and pull as much information out of them as possible. Right, Alex?
I mean, yes, obviously. And then I would, put that as understanding the buyer's journey, understanding what they're going through, understanding, what their typical journey is in the industry. And you got to tailor your sales approach to each different person. Asking those questions, you're going to better understand each buyer's journey. So a lot of people out there, we're not necessarily selling just one product or service. We have multiple products or services that we are selling. They may have initially come in interested in our, a small product or service that you or we have to offer. But then you realize while talking to them and asking them those questions that actually they have a bigger hole over here that you can solve with a product or service that you have. And guess what? Sometimes it leads to a 2-for-1. You have somebody that has come in and is only looking at this small aspect of it, but you've taught them either through storytelling or, again, that value-based selling that, hey, actually, we can help you with this big hole that you have here. And we can combine these two things. And guess what? That's a win-win for both you and the client.
Yeah. And it's really about having conversations, right? It's about having that conversation and asking them those things that are important. Which camera are we on, Riley? This one. Asking them those things that are important, not just for you, but to help them develop. Like sometimes people don't realize that they have a problem until they have it, right? Like people come to Alex and say, or Mason, and be like, hey, so I want to talk to you about this. And it's like, let's take a couple steps back and let's ask some questions here to understand the lay of the land. No different than you guys. And as you ask them questions like, oh, you know what? I didn't think about that. Oh, you know what? We actually do have this other thing that we want to do too. So you're just asking questions to understand the situation. Maybe you uncover a problem that they weren't thinking of consciously, but they have been subconsciously. And then as that comes out, then you have a completely different solution that you're trying to sell them. Based on the questions, you then answer you provide a solution that's specific to their situation. Why go into somebody like if you're selling machinery, I don't care what kind of machinery, why go into it and say that, look at this machinery, this is the footprint, this is the speed it could do, this is the efficiencies, this is the open, close, et cetera, if they just deal with a very small percentage. So asking them those questions and then saying, okay, so based on this information, what you're telling me is this is what's important to you and this is the situation. So based on that, the solution that I think would be best for you would be this specific press, this specific line of presses, this specific type of material, this specific marketing service. Like that's all that's about, is ask questions, figure out and truly understand what is their situation. And then once you have enough information, then you offer up the solution. That is going to build trust way faster than just being like we've been in situations before where it's like, okay, so just give me a high level rundown of your company. I can't stand doing that because it's like, okay, we do like 8 different things. High level rundown is going to be, we are the leading industrial sales and marketing agency out there. We only work with industrial and manufacturing companies and we have no plan B. That's the high rundown. But then a lot of people will be like, okay, so we do this, we do that, and here's why we do it. And it's just like, before you know it, it's 6 minutes of the salesperson talking, the other person just sitting there listening, you assume, but you have to get that engagement. You can speak for a minute and ask them a question, and speak for a minute back and ask them a question. But it's all about that game of like, it's like ping pong, going back and forth, having a conversation, and not just, all right, I'm going to pitch to you guys for 45 minutes on the screen, sit there and listen and try not to fall asleep.
We're back in college then at that point, and we all know that is a boring thing to do, is just have someone show up and throw up. And using those examples, when you ask those questions, you can get the answers, and you might have examples that you guys are using. If you guys are using pitch decks, you can flick through your pitch deck. If you're asking questions, oh, hey, I have something on my pitch deck that actually, could pertain to the answer that, or the question or the problem that you guys are having, and showing them those examples instead of just showing random examples. I don't know how many times I've sat there and I've seen in the sales process that people are just on their pitch decks just showing videos and examples of things that the client doesn't even have any use for. You obviously aren't asking the right questions. You're going to lose the client's interest, because at the point of, okay, they have a million things going on in their mind if they're a decision maker, and you're going to sit there and you're going to show them things that aren't relevant to them, they're going to turn off. Any human being is going to turn off if you're not showing something relevant to them. And then when you try and bring something relevant, then guess what? They're already turned off.
Exactly. All right, let's jump into the next question. Not the next question, the next point, which is going to be, do you want to wait? Wait while you change. You can't see the whiteboard from that, can you? You can't see it anyways. All right, the next thing is going to be number 4. Number 4 is document everything.
You see those memes on the Salesforce thing about sales managers and how we are, annoying about documenting everything.
Document everything. What do I say here, Alex? If it's not in HubSpot,
it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
It never happened.
It doesn't. And that's just the truth of it, because how could you possibly organize? Now, if you've got like 10 leads you're working or like 100 contacts, you can organize that easily. But when you're talking about hundreds, thousands, 6 months in, 12 months in, hey, did you remember that deal from 2 years ago? Well, hit him back up. Like, when you have all that information, you have to document it in a centralized location. Alex, walk me through your your process?
So our process is obviously Kyle-born process. On our HubSpot, we have, when people are coming in, discovery call, RFQ, we have everything going through our phases. If you guys are going to lose out, or if you guys have lost a client, make sure you're putting the notes in there. Make sure you put the last form of communication. If you don't have a CRM system that's actually keeping track of everything that's going on in your emails, make sure that you're putting notes in there. If you're having phone calls, make sure you're putting the notes of the phone calls, because sometimes in your follow-up, that's when you're going to get an answer. Is, oh no, we've moved on, stuff like that. And if you aren't keeping those notes on those phone calls in your CRM system, or wherever you guys are keeping the logs of your contacts, no one's going to know. You're going to forget. There's going to be Bob Dylan from XYZ company, and there's going to be another Bob from.
Dang, Bob, isn't he a famous musician?
I think so. I don't know why I said Bob Dylan. BD just came to my head. Anyway, and then you're going to have Bob from another company, and you're going to get them mixed up, and then you're going to make yourself as well as your company look not so great when you're calling them going, hey, following up on this, following up on the proposal we sent over to you guys, seeing what you guys have thought. And they're going to go, we told you guys 2 months ago that we're not doing this until next year. So making sure that you have it in there. We have a nurture process. So when we lose a client that says, hey, we're not ready right now, or, the budget isn't quite there right now, we're looking for the future, we have a nurture, putting them in the nurture, having different sections in your proposal process. In your closing processes, close one, nurture, lost if it's a genuine loss, but we all know that loss is never really lost.
Yeah, so, it's just not right now.
Right now.
And that's where you guys have to customize the information that you're trying to track to yourself. So maybe it's a custom field, like who's their current press manufacturer that they're buying? What's their annual spend? Like, customize all that stuff, because once you have the information, you could do things with it. And then you have the notes, like Alex said. Once you're talking to hundreds and thousands of people a year, and I know you guys may be like, dude, I only talk to like 200 people a year. You need to step it up. Even if your territory is small, you need to step it up. Have thousands of conversations a year. But tracking all that information in a centralized location like HubSpot, Salesforce, whatever your CRM system is, so that way you can recall it faster and easier in the future. And you can typically do some sort of list building automation behind it to say, show me everybody I talked to last year that has this specific competitor of ours listed as one of the companies that they work with, a company that they buy from. And then you can create strategic marketing, or your team can, behind, I want to go after this group of people that have this type of equipment. And with this case study showing them how ours is better than theirs, I might be able to turn some things loose. But documenting everything, recording everything, right? Whether you have Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, whatever the system is, record every single initial conversation. Every conversation you have with somebody, watch it back, like look at how you're talking, how you're pitching, what could you do better, but then putting it in a centralized location to say, what was that thing that they said on that call? Nobody's going to remember everything. I have a pretty good memory when it comes to deals and conversations with business stuff, and I'm not going to be able to remember everything. So being able to go back to that meeting, click it, play, hit the play, and be like, oh no, they said this. Documenting that all together along with your notes is the best way to set yourself up for success. But if you're not documenting it, you're not going to be organized. You're going to be spinning your wheels, not having a strategic plan of action of like, what am I going to do this quarter, this month, this week? If I don't have that information in there, if I haven't documented it, there's no possible way to follow up.
Make sure you guys also, if you have a loss, someone that comes in and is a lost client, make sure you ask them questions. Don't be afraid to ask them, hey, I know that some people don't want to share necessarily who they're going with, but even preface that like, hey, are you going, questioning who you're going with, who did you choose over us? Make sure you, again, preface it with, you don't have to obviously tell us if you're not comfortable with, but getting some feedback, because who knows, you could have an opportunity later on of a service or a product that you guys, a new service or product that you guys might start offering, that the reason why a client didn't go with you is because you weren't currently offering that. But if you keep those notes in there and you keep them, the notes in your CRM system, when that new product or service comes back around, you're going to remember that, wait a minute, what was the client that I think needed this product or service that we now have, that you can again go back around in a year or so and follow back up with them.
Exactly. So Alex, that was a perfect segue into number 5, the last point before we take a break and get into questions. Number 5, I'm right over here big, because this is the most important, is the follow-up. So you pitch, so marketing did something. We were on that camera, Riley. Marketing did something, brought somebody into your lead, into your funnel, etc. You did something as a salesperson. that's a lot of time typically that goes into it. So once you work them through your funnel, they're not just going to either buy or leave right away. As you guys know, it could be 6 months of them ghosting you, 9 months. Maybe it's like, yeah, we're waiting on feedback. Yeah, we're waiting on this. This is where the follow-up comes in. It's not dead until they say it's lost, the project's off the table. And even then, like Alex is saying, it's just not right now. I look at everybody that says no is not no forever. It's just no, not right now. Even if they go with one of our competitors, we will do things to win them back.
We also know they're coming back if they go with one of our competitors.
Exactly. They always come back.
always
Anybody
come
that
back.
leaves always comes back because they think the grass is green on the other side, and then they realize it's not. And so with the follow-up, you have to have certain things. And we talked about this, I feel like the last sales live we did, I don't know, we talk about follow-up a lot. And there's different methods of follow-up, different channels of follow-up, but you have to have a strategic plan in place to follow up with every different stage of the deal. Once you quote it and send it out, what does your follow-up look like? What's your cadence? Is it once a week? Is it once every 2 weeks? Are you having the conversation with them saying, hey, I'm going to shoot you over this quote, and then I'm going to follow up with you in a week. Is that okay? Or letting them know your intentions. If I don't hear back from you by next Tuesday, I'm going to reach out for you, just letting you know. And they say, okay, yeah, definitely reach out to me, but I'll try and get back to you. Like setting that up to where you have the follow-up in place, you have the things set, because that is what's going to make the difference between those that are great and those that are just okay, is how often they follow up, how relentless they are with the follow-up. We've got deals in our pipeline that haven't moved in probably like 9 months. Does that mean we're just going to say, throw them over to close loss and forget about them? No, you just do some light follow-up, touch them every couple of months, stay in front of their face, maybe throw them into a marketing campaign, send them a connection request on LinkedIn just to stay in front of them. But it's all about the follow-up to keep those deals moving down the pipeline. And so many salespeople just in industrial say, I followed up twice. If they wanted it, they would have bought it. They would have responded to it. If they were interested, they would have responded to it. And that is never the case.
Never. I don't know how many times Kyle has come into us, making sure that we are following up, making sure that when we do follow up, again, keeping documentation of it. As he said, you can say all you want that, hey, I followed up with that client. I followed up. I did this. I did that. If it's not in the CRM system, how is your sales manager supposed to know? How is your CEO supposed to know? How is your vice president supposed to know that you're actually doing what you say that you're doing? You can't blame them if they come in and they go, well, I didn't see any of that. And they're annoyed at you because they can't see that you followed up. I would be even more annoyed at the fact that you followed up and then you didn't put it in there, because that's like, it didn't happen. As Kyle says, it didn't happen unless it's in there, and no one can really tell. And you guys are you're going to forget. You're going to forget the last time you followed up with them. You're going to get 6 or 7 follow-ups deep, and you're going to be like, I feel like I followed up with them last week, but in reality, you followed up with them like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then they've gone on with somebody else.
And if the data's in there, you just got to look, right? Like nobody can remember everything. If the data's in there, just look to see when's the last time there's follow-up, set a task or do it right then and there. And it's that easy, but just making sure you stay on top of it and keep track of it. That's the key with the follow-up. But that 1,000% is the difference between those that make a lot of money in industrial sales and those that don't. Stand out, be different. Don't be like every single industrial sales guy out there that's just like 2 follow-ups, 3 follow-ups, and is like, dude, I'm out. They're obviously not interested in buying, so I'm just going to kick them to the curb. Maybe they'll come back next year. Never have that come out of your mouth. Always say, I'm going to control the situation. I'm going to control the narrative. I'm going to say, I'm following up again and again and again, and put them in something that does automatically possibly for you, but at a minimum have tasks set up.
Even if they say next year, make sure you guys aren't necessarily just following up next year, especially if you're selling a service. I know products are a little bit more difficult because they have a little bit longer lifespan, but especially if you guys are selling a service out there, make sure you're checking in, halfway through, maybe at the 6-month mark, checking in and making sure that the service that they decided to go on over you is actually still meeting their expectations. Because if you come in, you can look like Superman. You can come in and be like, hey, just making sure that everything's going well. And they're going, no, actually, this is awful. We're not having a good time. Everything that they promised us that they were going to do, they aren't doing. Then you can come and swoop in and take that business from them, because you're going to be the first one to have reached out again.
And it's no different, like in the pitch phase, no different than when you're going through just prospecting. Literally this week, we sent a message to someone, and the guy's response was, your ears must have been ringing because I was just talking about you. I have not talked to this guy. We have not reached out to him in probably, I don't know, a year, 6 months to a year. Yeah, probably 6 months. And it just so happens, all about timing, we reach out to him. He's like, Your ears must have been ringing. I was just thinking about you, just talking about you, and I want to jump on a conversation. And Mason's got a call with him on Friday, so tomorrow. So it's all about that follow-up to say, like, just checking in, see how it's going. You don't have to pitch them, just touching base, just putting something out there to say, hey, wanted to check in with you. Do you need anything? If you do, let me know. If not, I'll see you in 6 months. So with that being said, we're going to take a short, quick break and be able to go through these comments. So we will be right back and check out this new hype video that we're about to drop for the first time live. Woo! What's up, guys? We're back. How did you like that video? Put a comment section in the comments below. Put a comment section? Put a comment
section in the comment section below.
Put a comment in the comment section below. Tell us how you like that scale of 1 to 10. That's what I want to know, because Lara over here is the mastermind behind it. Whoop, whoop. Took her like, what, a week-ish on and off? I don't know if a week to make that hype video of what we accomplished as a company last year. Many more dope videos to come. But if you guys liked it, give Lara a shout out and say that it was awesome. Riley,
we loved it, Lara.
Yeah, we did. I've literally showed everybody here in the office as they come into the front door. I'm like, hey, give me like 45 seconds. Check out this video Lara made. Riley, what do we got in the comments?
Alrighty, so first question we have is from Brittany Wright, and she says, how do you flip a pitch when they lead with pricing before you can even get into value? Is that something that you set in your qualifiers?
Yeah, so I can't stand people that start with price. So in your situation, Brittany, knowing what you're selling, if somebody's starting with price, I guess it depends on the context. If they're saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your products, but I only have this much money, what can you do for me? I would appreciate them being upfront and honest. But if one of your value propositions is not being the cheapest, then that is a qualifier. If they can't afford what it is that you do, then they're doing you a service by saying this is all that I could spend. If they come at you and say, like everybody's going to say in industrial, I need your best price. And even to us, they'll say, I need your best price. What's the best you can do it for? What's the cheapest you can do it for? If you start off the relationship like that, that's not really a win-win, right? That's like a win-lose. They win and you lose, because they're just looking to see what's in their best interest, which is cost. So they need to frame it from the standpoint of like, look, I'm looking for something that's cost-effective and affordable. I've got a budget, but I wanted to see what you guys think about it. So it depends on the context of how they set it. But definitely, if somebody leads with price, that is a qualifier for you. That is why on our forms, when you book time with us, we have certain price points. So we understand what is the price point that they typically spend monthly on marketing. And also, if it's somebody that's like, I want to spend this much money, we're not the fit. There's other companies that can do that for them. We're more of a mid to high tier agency because of the services that we offer and the results that we get with it. So we use it as a qualifier, as should you guys. But with price shoppers, with people that are focused strictly on price, you know that even if you form that relationship, the next time they need something, they will be doing the same to you that they did to their last supplier, and you don't want to be in those situations.
Yeah, and if they come at you and they go, hey, your competitor is cheaper, one of my favorite things to say is good. It should be. It should be cheaper, because they're not going to be able to offer or complete what we're going to be able to complete. If they're charging, the same amount that we are and completing the same task or the same amount that we are, and they still aren't completing what we can complete, who's worth more at that point? I think that saving money and not getting what you're paying for, or paying a little bit more and actually getting what you're paying for, is worthwhile.
Exactly. All right, Riley, number 2. We got a number 2?
Yes, we do.
We got a number 2. Let's go.
Next question is from Julia Kern, and she says, what kind of marketing drip campaigns do you recommend? And she also asks about what type of content to include as well.
So we'll start with the first one. What kind of marketing drip campaigns do we recommend? It depends on the situation, but you should at least have a nurture campaign set up so that way you are going to be touching base with them every X amount of time. So if you've marketed to them a lot, they're not biting, put them on a once every 2-3 months campaign where you're just sending them some piece of content, something out there where you're going to provide them with value, not asking them to do anything. You're not spamming them. You're not doing a full-blown marketing like newsletter. It's just like, hey, Steve, thought that you might get some value out of this. Here's 2 articles that we wrote in the last quarter. Here's a white paper. Here's a new page that has a tool or a calculator on it for you. Sending stuff like that once every few months to be able to stay in front of them is key. And then what was the second part of the question?
And the content. What type of
Yeah, so the content should be something that's providing value, and not just value like you think that they might get some value out of, like actual value. Like if you have a tool, a calculator, a guide, an ebook, anything like that, a compilation of the stuff that you guys have written, videos that you've created that could be educational to them. It has to be something of value, either written or video, and just do it light and send it out there. So that's like a nurture campaign for people that haven't really engaged in much. But there should be other steps before that. Like if you do a trade show and people aren't engaging after you have a conversation, maybe that's a slightly different nurture. It's a slightly more aggressive one where you're going more frequently. But people that you've beat up, we call those skeletons, where there's no meat left on that bone, and you throw them into a long drip nurture, and then don't forget about them. Don't just say, I'm going to get nothing from this person. Circle back with them and hit them like 12 months later on another 3 or 4 series cycle over the year. I think that is what works the best.
All right, and then next question. This was on follow-ups from Tim Drinkwater. Thoughts on using a follow-up survey to existing or dormant customers?
Yeah, Drinkwater is back. Tim, I have a feeling that everybody always remembers you with your last name being Drinkwater. So
maybe he's just trying to remind everybody to drink water.
Maybe that's his stage name.
Yeah.
Is that your stage name, Tim? Are you just trying to get people to remember you by like, dude, you got to drink water, man. That is a dope last name. It's like I talked to a guy from the PMA yesterday, Damon Wolf.
Oh.
If that's not a salesperson's name, like he was born, like his career, Damon Wolf, if you ever watch this, his career was set before he was even a day old. When they picked that name, they're like, he's going to be a killer in sales. Also true as opposite for other areas, like the joke says with like what girls' names are. Anyways, so what is the question that Drinkwater said?
Thoughts on using a follow-up survey to existing or dormant customers?
Yes, need to do it. Need to do follow-up surveys, need to do existing surveys, need to check in with them frequently. How's it going? Keep the survey short. Have something in place where if the average of the 10 questions they answer isn't at a certain level that requires somebody to follow up with them, have a phone call, do whatever to touch that client a little bit deeper. But you need to be able to follow up with existing customers post-sale. I don't know what you sell, Tim, but after you close a deal.
Water.
Yeah, maybe. After you close that deal, he probably sells like heavy industrial machinery or something like that.
Probably
so
crazy.
after you close that deal, once it's in customer service or in account management, follow with them from a sales standpoint. Once they sell or start servicing them, touching base every couple of months, every 6 months, once it's gone through the first 90 days. What we do here is we have something called transfer of trust. So transfer of trust process is when the sales team is transferring the trust that they establish with the potential customer onto the ops team. So that's a 90-day process where they're transferring the trust over and showing like, this is our team. These are the people that do what we say that we're going to do every single day. Let them build their trust in their own way, but the salesperson's still there to be familiar. And we have follow-up surveys every other month to these people, all of our customers, and then even exit surveys. Somebody leaves, ask them why they left, ask them where they're going, ask them what went wrong, what could you have done better. If they say you were very competitive with your pricing, you were in the top 2, but we picked somebody else, love to, like, I'm sorry that we weren't your chosen supplier to this or your chosen partner to this. If there's anything we could do differently, what would you say that we do? Because we're always trying to improve as a company. So any key areas that tip the scales into their favor, I love saying that to people because you can get a lot of information because you're coming off sincere. So definitely do those surveys.
So you mentioned asking what you could have done better, and Brittany said the same thing. She said, I always ask what I could have done better to get the opportunity to work with you in the future.
There you go.
Awesome. And then we've got another question from Ryan Weaver. And he asked, any tips on managing emotions during cold calls?
That depends, Ryan. Are we managing your emotions or their emotions? Like,
Mason, we need Mason in here. We need Mason.
So, yeah, give me some clarification on emotions. Emotions like you're frustrated, you're annoyed, you're nervous, like those types of emotions. Are you talking about managing emotions like when we call somebody and they say some cuss words back to us, their emotions? Give me some clarification of that. But I would say, like, any time that you're pitching anybody, especially on the phone, like they can't even see you, so you shouldn't really be that nervous. If you mess up, who cares? It's not the end of the world. You can
always laugh out of it.
Yeah,
I'll go if I mess up. I'll go, make the stupidest noise on my cold calls, and it normally gets a laugh.
Yeah, and that's where you just need to go into it knowing, like, dude, it's not the end of the world if you mess up. You're not going to be perfect, so just learn from what you're doing, right? And if you make a mistake, don't do it again. Try not to do it again. That's the best way to learn. But remove emotion from it and just try and have fun. Like, the emotion should be happy and the emotion should be fun.
There should be excitement.
Yeah.
Because, you never know. That next call that comes through, I know it's awful. I made 65 cold calls today before we came into here. And it's a long, drawn-out process, but it's exciting. Every time you get a new person that's come through, whether you see what their title is, especially when you get an actual decision maker coming through on your cold call. You look at and you get a vice president. For us, vice president of sales and marketing is my dream right there. Boom, makes my mouth water, because I know if I get this person on the phone, that I'm going to be able to prove them value and potentially get that discovery call, because I've done the research. I know that there's something that we can help them out with. And if I can bring that to their attention, they're the perfect person that I don't then have to go up the ladder for. I've got them right then and there if they answer the phone. And sometimes if they don't, guess what? Leaving that voicemail, doing that follow-up, keep with that outbound. See, there you go. I'm already messing up. Can't talk. Get that outbound out. Just make sure it's out there, because the worst thing that can happen is that they say no.
Yeah, so he provides some clarification. Ryan said, more my emotions, whether going good or bad. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, don't beat yourself up too much on it. You're going to suck at times. I've done it. There's plenty of times where I'm on the phone and I can't even talk, can't even form a sentence. I just kind of wing it. But critique yourself, record yourself. That's key. Is you got to record all of those calls. So hopefully you're calling through a system like in HubSpot, built-in calling, built-in call system, setting up, record every single conversation. So that way you can go back and be like, you know what, that wasn't as bad as I thought. There's been times where people have said, like, dude, that call was so bad. But when I go back and listen to it, I'm like, you know what? You didn't do that bad, but you're just like over critiquing yourself. But just be prepared. That starts with number one. So with the pitch on a cold call, what are you trying to do? I'm trying to book them to this. I'm trying to move it to this stage. What are the questions you want to ask? Once you have that prepared, it's just rinse and repeat and just go through the process. Practice at home, practice in front of a mirror, smile while you're doing it so you sound happy and upbeat. Do all that stuff, and I promise you'll be a lot better. But don't beat yourself up too much. You won't have every single answer to every single question, no matter what, no matter how much information you have, you won't be able to. So you can just say, hey, you know what? That's a great question. Let me get back to you on that. In the meantime, can I ask you one more question before we get off the phone? Like, things like that, that's what you need to focus on.
Make sure your voice is always upbeat too. I know that you can sit there and you hear these motivators, they're saying being positive, and just even when things aren't going great, pretending that things are going great, having a positive outlook, having a positive voice, even when you're going to the phone. Sometimes I don't want to make the call, and sometimes I want to, when they're calling, go, hey, this is Alex from Manufacturing Tribe, how are you, blah, 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 blah. No. I sit there and I go, let's be energetic. Let's go like that. And then guess what? You already feel like it's a new call. You feel like you haven't made any calls. Hey, this is Alex with Manufacturing Tribe. We're the industrial sales and marketing company. Having that high energy and going, even when you're leaving a voicemail, can help you not feel so down. Because if you're just going through the motions and just going, okay, and you start becoming like Eeyore, from Winnie the Pooh, and you're going, ooh, and you're all sad and down about yourself, it's not going to go over well. It's just going to get worse. So just think about a positive, Tim, or Ryan. That was Ryan, right?
Ryan, yep.
Yeah,
Ryan.
Just be positive, man. Think about me and Mason. We're sitting there right next to you making those cold calls. So,
yep.
Alrighty, no more questions at the moment, but we do have some general comments. We got a compliment on the hike video. Hike video looks amazing.
Who said that?
That was Lenore.
That was Lenore.
We love you, Lenore.
Tim, drink water.
Let's go drink water.
On the hike video, he says that it's a 9 because he was just getting into the groove and it ended.
Oh, there we go. That's
so
a good point.
We need longer.
10 is around the corner.
All right, yeah. A 10 is coming in Rev 2, which Lara's going to export tonight. She's got to make a tweak to the ending. The ending isn't perfect. Lara knows what slight tweak she has to make, but I was like, we need to show the public this today.
Show the people.
So you got us in draft mode. Wait till Rev 2 gets dropped.
And then Brittany says, smile and dial.
Smile and dial. Brittany knows what it's like.
They can hear you smiling through the phone.
Yeah, that's why you got to practice in front of a mirror and smile, because it's a completely different tone.
Yep.
And you don't always have to. You don't have to be like overly like. Be yourself. Bring your own personality into the mix, but you need to be somewhat upbeat. Don't be like, "Hey Ryan, it's Kyle with Manufacturing Tribe. How's it going?" Like, dude, you're not gonna want to talk to me. Now, I don't have to be like super, super high. Just be normal. Whatever's in your range, whatever works for you that you can do consistently. Just be that. Be happy. You're going to get a win one of these days. One of those calls is going to get a win. That then gives you the dopamine drip that you need to then fuel you to do the next 20 calls, 60 calls, 150 calls, whatever.
Hey, when you get that, the actual booking and they sign into a client, man, that makes me, good for 1,000 calls.
There you go. You heard it here first. Alex will do 1,000 calls until he books a deal. And then after that, it's 1,000 more.
1,000 more.
Happily. He will happily do 1,000 calls.
If I could book it that every 1,000 calls that I make a deal, a signed deal. Shit.
You'd have to, if that happened, Alex would have 6 phones.
Yes.
And he'd have 3 of them on AI bot dialing, and then he'd be like, "Hey, this is Alex.
Hey,
hang on a second. Hey, this is Alex.
Hold on, got somebody on the other line."
Yeah. He'd do 1,000 calls in a day.
Yes, definitely would.
1,000 calls in a day. Let's go, Nancy. Coming through the window.
Whoop, whoop. No, see, here she comes. She's coming.
No,
around.
we're still live, Nancy.
We're still live.
We're still live.
We're just saying hi.
We're just saying hi.
Hi, and the people.
Any other comments, Riley?
We don't have any at the moment.
All right, so that means that we get to go back to our jobs.
Making
I'm over
cold
on
calls.
this camera. Alex, are you going to make any more cold calls today?
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get to
All right.
today.
Ryan, you brought it up. Alex is going to make 10 cold calls and probably get a discovery call booked from it just because you said that. So, guys,
my 1,000th one right there.
There you go. Guys, if you got value out of this content, share it with somebody that you know. Head over to my YouTube channel, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you want to listen to this in podcast, head over to every major podcast platform, Industrial Sales and Marketing with me. Hit your calendars. Follow us both on LinkedIn and hit your calendars too. Tuesdays and every other Thursday. Tuesdays is industrial marketing. Every other Thursday is industrial sales. And we will see you guys on the next one.